I am joined today by Guillermo Fisher, who I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with for over a year now. And for 2 decades, he's been busy building high-performing dev teams and cloud-resilient architectures at startups and Fortune 500 companies alike. In June of last year, 2023, he bravely launched his own company, Kuzaa, a consulting firm aimed at helping mission-driven organizations leverage technology to further their social impact. Guillermo, thank you so much for joining me today, and huge congratulations on the launch of your company.
Thank you very much. That was an awesome intro. Appreciate
it. Well, I'm so glad you're here on Cupalo Conversations, and I would love to talk more about your journey into the consulting world. You had been a full-time employee for so many years. Why now? Why did you decide to start your own thing?
Yeah, good question. So, like you said, I've been working for companies. I've been in tech for 20 years. And while I was looking for jobs, along with everybody else that was on the market at the time, I had some issues, got ghosted by a few folks. We got to the final round and then just didn't make it for one reason or the other. But I had already started talking to people about maybe just doing some project-based consulting work. So I had a client already. And after a couple of bad recruiting experiences, I just said, look, why don't I just try to do this thing full time? Talked about it with my wife, who gave me the okay. And, I said, all right, we'll just give it a shot. And if, it doesn't work for 3 months, I'll do something else. And if it doesn't work for 6 months, I'll do something else. And now here we are 10 months later and still going.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really glad this ended up working out, and apologies on behalf of all the recruiters who ghosted you. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, there's a lot of less than stellar ones out there, but ultimately maybe they were the reason that you embarked on this journey. So what are the types of challenges, the types of things that you're helping your clients with?
It varies by where they are in kind of the lifetime of their company and what services they need. So I have some folks who I'm kind of helping sort of as a technical co-founder. Like, I'm a very early hire, if you will. I'm helping them to kind of define what it is their engineering culture will be, define who their first hires are going to be, but really like laying the groundwork on making technical decisions about where are we going to host our stuff. What is our IT going to look like? Are we going to use Google Workspaces or Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever it is? So that's kind of one kind of customer. The other is folks that have they have an engineering team. Maybe it's contractors or maybe it's just a couple of folks, and they want to kind of go to the next level and move up, scale the business. And so I help them figure out how to do that. Again, advising with some technical leadership, but also here's how you kind of manage the productivity of an engineering team. Here's what you're supposed to look out for. Here's how you help developers progress in their careers. And then there are some folks that I just help out with security and compliance. There are some folks that I help out with mainly IT stuff, like a help desk process or something like that. And then I also do some consulting, like project-based consulting as well, where I'll help. For instance, with one client, I am putting an RFP together. I'm going to help to interview folks for that RFP and determine who they eventually go with.
Are the bulk of your clients then startup? And if so, what stage of funding are they at?
I've got a couple that are startup but aren't funded yet. They're like very early stage startups. But the others, there's a couple that aren't going the funding route, like aren't going to go to VCs or anything like that. And then there are some that they're not necessarily in tech, but they are, I wouldn't call them a startup either, just kind of a small company that are pretty established, have been around for a little bit.
Cool. All right. Well, I have a lot of people in my orbit who are really, really curious about what fractional leadership looks like. I mean, they're just extremely talented. I think maybe a little bit bored in their current day-to-day job. People who are like interested in getting into fractional, either, fractional CTO or fractional CISO work. And I'm curious, would you recommend this as a path for them? And if so, would you recommend they dip their toe, i.e., keep their day job and do this on the side? Or would you say, nope, jump into the deep end, launch your own thing like you did, and embrace it, full on. What would you encourage people who are curious about this fractional, technical leadership type of path?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't recommend doing this alongside a full-time job unless you were able to somehow scale back your your responsibilities in that job, because you don't want to do your clients a disservice, right? I tried freelancing a little bit ago, years ago, and I would like do all my work at night, and I was terrible. I was like a horrible freelancer. People hated working with me, but I was doing great at my day job. So I wouldn't recommend somebody doing that kind of thing, especially at the fractional level. Like you're supposed to be an executive, right? You're supposed to come in there and work like an executive, and I don't think you can do that. You can't split your time up that way. I wouldn't recommend that. I would say go in, make sure you have enough kind of runway for yourself to not make money for a little bit, right? Like that's just the reality of the situation, right? You may not be successful out the gate, but if you have some runway, I would say go do it full time box how long you do it for, set some goals. If you don't meet those goals, then try to get back into either your previous role or some other role. But yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that you kind of have to commit to full time.
Do you think the market is ready for fractional leadership? I know so many great people who would be amazing assets to companies, especially the ones that you mentioned who need the most shepherding at that pre-seed or early funding stage. But I'm curious if investors who are involved have that same level of confidence, because I would imagine that they want somebody, especially in this key leadership role, to be there full time at the helm as opposed to just, fractionally or part time. Do you think the market is ready to embrace fractional leadership at this point?
These are great questions. I think that's a complicated question. I think so. The benefit of having a fractional leader versus, let's just talk about CTOs, right? And especially like a first time CTO, right? Benefit of having somebody like me is that I've been around, I know what I'm doing, and so I might not be full time, but time that I am dedicating, I submit to you that I'm being more productive than somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, right? And so if I'm the investor kind of on the outside looking in, I see there is somebody here who can actually help make this company successful, who's done it before in some capacity at some other company. And so I would be more comfortable, you know, investing my resources into that versus taking a chance on someone who has never run a product, run a team, run a company. And I know there are other folks in the fractional community that have been doing it for a while, right, and who have helped companies, walk them through exits, helped companies scale, and they're included on the decks to investors. They're included in any communication as a fractional CTO, and it hasn't been a problem as far as I know for them.
Do you think that it's challenging to build development teams around a fractional leader, though? Like, I'm curious, as an engineer coming into an organization where the CTO isn't, a full time member of the organization, do you think that poses a challenge to building teams around that type of model?
I think it depends on the maturity of the team and the way you're building that team, right? So no team should be built around a person, right? I think they should be built around a culture. And I think in how you define that culture, you can define kind of what the mechanisms are for communicating with your leader or the person that's supporting the organization. Like for instance, I'm kind of fractional with this one company. I have one-to-ones with all the engineers. I am there in Slack. I help unblock them. I operate as a full-time person. I'm there less, but when I am there, I am trying to make sure that I'm amplifying my impact so that they don't feel like they aren't getting what they need. And I also understand that I'm not going to be there all the time. And so I try to put mechanisms in place that allow them to get things that they need without having to reach out to me. So documentation is important, having, certain folks delegating things to other people so that they can take control over, certain other kinds of work is also important. But the culture that we're trying to cultivate within these organizations is built around, at least in my opinion, around engineers being empowered to do what they need to do without necessarily having to like get you involved.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I appreciate you mentioning that it's not built around a single person. A company is not hopefully should not be built around a single person, and so that would be a very fragile company at that. Do you have advice for people going back to this interest from my network about this type of path? You mentioned they should probably be prepared to not make money initially. Was that a challenge for you figuring out how to market yourself, price yourself, or build a portfolio? Because I feel like there's also building up the confidence, even though to your point, you've cut your teeth on a lot. You have 2 decades of doing this, but was there for you a period of time figuring out how do you really market yourself? How do you set pricing? And how do you build that portfolio?
Yeah, I'd say I'm still in that period, and that is definitely the most challenging thing. I think the work itself is pretty straightforward, and it's really rewarding doing it, but there's all the other work around it, right? So the business development has been especially challenging for me because I'm not the kind of person that likes to just get in front of people and say, "Hey, you need to hire me." Like I don't like doing that at all. I don't like marketing myself in that way, but I have to, right? So I'm on LinkedIn. I am trying to post as much as I can. I'm trying to answer those expert questions and all that stuff. But it takes in the beginning, like I was so averse to it that I just every week that I tried to do it, I would just like crumble under all of this self doubt. You know, like no one wants to hear what you have to say. There are more experienced people than you in this space, and I just had to get over it. Like I was talking to other people who had done this in the past. It's like you just got to get over that, and your experiences are unique. You know, you've as a person in this industry or any industry really, over the span of like the 20 years that I've been here, I've accumulated all these different experiences and served in different capacities. And the sum of all that yields who I am, right? And there is nobody else like me. And so I have to kind of just lean into the fact that, yes, there are other people who are doing this thing, but none of them are you. And so you are unique enough that you have a value proposition. Once you figure out who it is that you're trying to serve, you know, just kind of figuring out what your kind of niche is or who your ICP is. Once you've got that figured out, and that there needs to be some work to do that, you shouldn't be afraid to reach out to them in a way that's authentic to you, and to say, "Look, I can help you," and I've helped people in the past like you. I can do that. Um, so yeah, I think that that's probably the most challenging thing, the business development piece of it. Um, and I've learned that the best way for me to do it is you know the way I post on LinkedIn has really been inspired by you, to be honest, in a lot of ways. But I'm trying to be as honest as I can with myself. I'm not going to post something that I think is corny. I'm not trying to be like everybody else. I'm just going to do what I want to do, right? And so that attracts eyes. I've gotten my first two customers I got through LinkedIn. I didn't know them at all. It's a challenging thing, but once you get into it and you commit to doing it, it's not that bad.
Kudos to you. I think that no matter what company you build, business development is hard because, especially when you are a one person shop, you're selling yourself. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing. To your point, I love though how you said you are unique and you have something that can help that person. When you know who your ideal customer is, you can identify them right off the bat and you can offer something of value authentically. So you touched on some, multiple challenges, not just business development, but overcoming those self-doubt, those
Mhm.
fears around what are you, really offering, and pricing and building your portfolio. And I'm curious, what has been the most unexpected rewarding aspect of this?
These are fantastic questions. I would
Well, good. I'm
say,
glad I didn't come with crap ones.
yeah, I think it's confidence to be blunt. It is in the past, you know, you work for a company, you get feedback pretty if it's a you know a good company, you get feedback on a regular basis about hey, you're doing a great job or you're not doing so well in this area. So you gotta you know get better here. I don't really get that, right? I get we're gonna extend the contract or we're done. So I in the absence of that, I've got to remind myself that I'm competent. I've got to, and I have like a post-it note over there that says that I'm competent, like seriously. I have to take it upon myself to like make sure that I'm developing my own career. But at the core of all that is, this kind of newfound confidence, this required confidence. I don't think I'd be able to move forward if I didn't have it. And I've kind of that it's the result of all the things I already talked about, right? Like I've had to take a look at myself and say, all right, you can do this. You are doing it. You were doing it. You're good enough to do it. And um, so there's that, but also separating to some extent myself from the rejection, right? The way I heard it put from by somebody else is the person that you are kind of putting out to the rest of the world isn't necessarily you. It is you, but it is not like you. So if you get rejected, don't take it personally. It's just like you're not a good fit for that organization or that situation. And so in the beginning, if somebody said no, I was like crushed. And now if I get a no, I'm like, all right, how can I learn from this and maybe change my pitch or better understand the ICP? Maybe this person wasn't who I thought they were, but kind of separating myself in that way has also helped me to feel better about myself and not take everything so personally, if that makes sense.
Have you had to separate yourself also from Kuzaa? Like as a company, have you had to not marry your identity so much to it? I'm just curious if that's even been a challenge of yours because I think human nature, we love to quickly, grab hold of an identity. I went gluten-free once and I was a pain in the ass after 2 weeks to everyone around me because everybody knew I was gluten-free, right? And I've really tried to exercise my own sort of self-governance in this way that the company is not me. And I'm curious, have you had to do the same?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I've had to do that with this company, and I also run a nonprofit and a meetup. I've had to do the same thing there. Um, and yeah, it's easy to do, like you said, to kind of just use these different things to really define who you are, but they are not who you are. And so you've got to do the separation and really get to the core of who you are. And there are certain things that help with that, like, your faith, if you're a faith-based person, that has helped me tremendously. Your family and, understanding who you are to them has been tremendous. My wife has played the biggest role in all of this, right? Like she believes in me. She has allowed this to happen. And that has really helped.
Yeah, same here. I couldn't have done this without Peter. And that's something that I don't think gets a lot of coverage out there in
Mhm.
the world that we see all these people who are, solopreneurs who are just killing it, right? And we
Right.
don't see a lot of what support they need to do what they're doing. And so I'm the first to admit I'm super needy and I get a lot of help along the way. I depend on that. So I think that's really beautiful. Like you said, you hold where you really belong outside of your company, in your faith and in your family. Do you ever miss, speaking of belonging, do you ever miss being a part of an organization or a part of a team, or have you found that in this role? Do you ever, I guess, experience loneliness as a solo entrepreneur?
Yeah, I did at first, for sure. But I've found a couple of communities that have helped. There is a community called Fractionals United, and there are a bunch of fractional executives there that I've met a few. I meet regularly with some of them. They have like a weekly call with folks, so that's been great. Um, yeah, I think it'd be cool to go to like an offsite or something like that. I do miss that kind of thing, but I'm just trying to replace it with other things. Like I can do things for myself if I feel like it, right? I can go the being around other people, even though I'm an introvert and I'm a big fan of like remote work. I think it's still occasionally important for me. So I do go to like a co-working space as well, and I get to talk to people there. Not necessarily part of a team, but just kind of I get to be around people with cool ideas and get to know them. If I was still working at a company, I wouldn't have kind of ventured out into some of the things that I've ventured out into now. Like there's so much going on here in Hampton Roads. I didn't have the time for, right? And so now there are all these events that I'm able to go to. I can go to and meet folks and kind of be part of bigger communities than just the ones at the companies where I work.
That's great. I agree. I think that by also getting probably more comfortable having to be more vulnerable just in the we
Mm.
talked about business development. There's nothing that feels more vulnerable than trying to get business, right? So I imagine you're working that muscle too, and that's where that confidence you spoke of comes from. And so also, coupled with just having more your eyes open to these things, but being able then to take advantage of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything that you wish you knew before you started this? I guess I know we've talked about some of the challenges and then some of the unexpected rewards or joys of it. Is there anything you wish you knew? Again, thinking of those listeners who are, and I've talked to one yesterday, so it's very top of mind for me that you would tell them to know or that you wish you knew.
Yeah, I think going into it, you understand that you are selling yourself or that you're going to be involved in sales, but your job is sales. Like I am a salesperson. I have a sales pipeline. Like I have a funnel. I have leads and all the other salesy jargon. Like that is part of my life now. Whereas before it was like something that I respected, and I worked with salespeople. Like it's your job. Like yes, you do the other stuff, but you are a salesperson. And so I know, especially for folks in tech, I don't want to speak in like too broad generalities, but a lot of folks in tech just kind of aren't into that kind of thing. And so um, you just have to know that it is going to be majority of your you're going to spend a majority of your time doing that kind of thing and be okay with it. And it's not that bad, to be honest.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I think having been in sales for a decade myself, and I often hear the craft sort of denigrated because there's so many, there's a lot of, let's be honest, there's a lot of terrible salespeople out there and they're just annoying. But having to have some grace with myself in this new seat, where I'm not selling somebody else's company, I'm selling my own. It's a whole other level I've never experienced myself. So that's really great that you've leaned into it and you survived and you said it's not that bad. And I think it's also really cool that by taking that action, you had this other unseen benefit of growing as a person and growing in confidence, and that spills over to so many other facets of life, I imagine. So, my last question for you today, since we're at the beginning of a new year, and this will be you're going to be entering your second year this June as a business owner. What's top of mind for you? Could be anything related to business or life, but what's top of mind for you in 2024?
I have my own like personal OKRs, and so most of them are around business, and revenue. Um, and so I want to scale the company to some extent. I want to offer some new services that are designed specifically for the people that I'm trying to serve. But I also want to be a more disciplined person when things aren't going well. Like, if business isn't going as well, I'm really good about, all right, I have to do A, B, or C. And here's my morning routine. I'm going to stick to that until things change. And then things change and I get lazy. And then I get back into, I have to do it again. And so I don't want to, I want to be more consistent about taking care of myself and taking care of my business um, in a more structured way on a regular basis. Yeah,
That's great. I think self-care, again, it's amazing how much of this business is a lot about how we also show up in the world ourselves and how we think of ourselves. To your point about like again that confidence, that's self-care right there, is developing the confidence to show up in the world. So I think that's really great that you have that also further self-care as a priority. But thank you so much, Guillermo. I am so grateful you're in my orbit. I myself, having embarked on this journey shortly after you, have been looking to you as a beacon of hope, of someone who's trudging ahead before me. And I don't feel so alone because I have people like you. And it is really challenging. This journey is really challenging. We picked it, right? And we embrace it, but it still is hard, but it's less hard because there is a feeling of camaraderie. And we would never have this conversation. I think if we hadn't started down our respective paths, we wouldn't be talking like this today. And I don't know if you found this, but I've met more amazing people in the last 7 months than I have truly in the last few years, just because of how I feel I've shown up maybe my level of vulnerability, maybe it's the sales component, but how many amazing people have been magnetized into my life, and you're one of those.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. And I feel the same way about you. I know we worked together a little bit in the past, but I feel like our relationship is different now. And I really enjoy watching these and talking to you about what you're doing and just watching the way your business is growing and how you show up is really inspiring to me. So thank you.
Thank you so much again for joining me today on Cupalo Conversations. And thank you again for being in my orbit and continuing to inspire me. And you've lit up my corner of the world. So thank you again.
Thank you.